We got a large enough sample size here, Greedy, where I think you can just look at it and say, or not definitively one way or the other, but at least have an opinion about whether or not this team is better than what we've seen in recent years. Doesn't mean ultimately it's going to win a championship. Obviously, it's built to win one. We believe it stays healthy. It has as much ability as anybody else, short of maybe the Nuggets, to win one. But it is a different mix, a different collection. We've talked about it ad nauseum between Smart, the Williams, Brogdon, key guys last year that are gone, key guys longer term that have been part of the core, obviously in the case of really everyone other than Brogdon. And you bring in Porzingis and Holiday, both of whom have been very strong, generally speaking. And, obviously the Tatum in particular continues to take another step, if not on the floor as a leader. Brown, I think, is still there's some inconsistency in his game this year that he's still sort of navigating and finding his way. We talked a lot about that in last week's show. Do you feel like this group, in terms of its offensive and defensive mix, year two of Joe, as he is obviously more comfortable in his own skin and as a head coach and everyone around him and leading all of these players, is this just a better team than what we've seen the last couple of years, despite a couple of years ago reaching the finals?
I still think this team is now, again, this is my opinion, they've graduated into if you're going to talk about better or worse, you can only prove that in the spring, because that's their baseline for me, right? Like, they can't just make the finals, they have to win the finals. Right. So I think if you're saying, are they better or not? Well, who knows? If they lose in the first round or second round, no. I think what you can say is in the quarter of games that we've seen, they're more balanced, right? The things that we thought would be really devastating have turned out to be really devastating, right? Like Porzingis and what he's meant on both ends of the floor is every bit as advertised. Drew, the way he's come in his role and been that defensive sort of, linchpin, has been better than advertised. The offense hasn't, but again, they haven't really needed that up until this point. I think Joe has been better in a lot of the things that he struggled with last year. They seem more prepared and like they get it. But we were saying that last year in the 21-5 start. So the big questions, we won't know until the spring. But I think what we're seeing is just a more sustainable brand of basketball. If you want to call that better, I'm not going to stop you. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. But I just think we need to see what happens when they go through their first stretch of losing 3 and 5, or, 5 and 7, whatever that's going to be, because no 82 game season is all roses, right? It wasn't, it was this time last year, they lost to the Warriors. That was the big game on the schedule. And then they went into that skid, after that hot start. So hopefully this team doesn't do it. But what we've seen, like when Porzingis is on the floor, their starting 5 net rating is like plus 50. Like, they're just absolutely demolishing teams. That, I think you can say, has been better, but it is only, 19 games into the season.
FanDuel is the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think we're allowed to be, and again, this is where like the discourse on the internet has been really unbelievably toxic this year. It's just, they lose one game, everybody freaks out. But I think this year it certainly feels different. The defensive stuff is the big thing, though, because again, last year it felt like they were just like, hey, we don't need to worry about defense because we're going to score 100 million points every game. So who cares about defense, because we're just a buzzsaw right now. This team is more reliant and more comfortable on defense, and I think that's a big part of like having Drew Holiday here, and him being like his best Drew Holiday self. Like, it's so much fun to watch him play defense, and he just like roams around and just causes chaos, very similar to Smart, but a little bit differently. And it seems like this team is still learning how to adapt to that and how to as he moves, how to shift the defense so we can cover where he was. It's really, really kind of fun. This team feels a little more sophisticated, I think. And again, it's the post-ups. It's the way they attack in transition. Their defense is a little bit different. It feels like, Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser have had a little something different. Again, it feels a little more fine-tuned, a little more sophisticated this year. And again, that's why, as before we started recording the show, we're just bummed that they haven't played in a while. They went from like Tuesday to Friday, and now we have to wait till Monday. Like, this is garbage. I just want to watch this team play more because it's fun to watch them grow together right now.
But it has to be said, if the Celtics get this version of Jaylen Brown in the playoff series, they're not going to win the title. If they get the version of Jayson Tatum that we've seen over the last 7 or 8 games, they're not going to win the title. Like, the encouraging part is they're 15-4 with their 2 best players not really playing up to each of their respective potential. The downside is maybe they won't. So if they don't, you're still going to run into the same issues that have plagued them in previous playoff runs, right? Like, in the losses that we've seen, when Jaylen has struggled and Tatum maybe has high turnovers or doesn't, live up to his top 5 billing, it doesn't really matter who the number 3rd scoring option is, what assistant coaches they brought in. It still comes down to Tatum and Brown. And through 19 games, I would not say that we've had an NBA title caliber Tatum and Brown to start the season.
So what do you attribute that to? Because, you just said the last 7-8 games for Tatum. That's basically half the season. And Brown, I feel like, has been inconsistent all the way throughout. There have obviously been some great games. There have been some really, really bad ones, too. So, what ultimately is causing that at this point?
It's weird because with Tatum, he still does so much, right? Like, he's still gonna, make an impact. His problem has just been turning the ball over. He has 17 turnovers in 3 games. So for me, I just think that's just him just not playing brain dead basketball. Like, just be conscious of what you're doing. He's throwing these lazy passes. He's dribbling off his foot. It's like things that you just don't, and you don't pair with Jayson Tatum. With Jaylen, it's a little bit different, right? You're still seeing some of the decision-making mistakes that get him into trouble. His biggest thing has just been his efficiency. His true shooting percentage is the worst of his career. So you want to hope that that's just making shots and, every guy goes through ups and downs. We've seen on this very roster, guys go from shooting in the 20s to start the year to now being, what you would expect. So, part of me, I think, is him maybe forcing it offensively to try to, not have those down shooting nights. I think defensively he's been fine. His passing has been better, but he can't have the worst true shooting percentage of his career if the Celtics are going to win the NBA title. That's just, he's too important of a player, and you got to just hope that, 1 and 2 of these games in a row, he starts catching a rhythm, and then that, takes care of itself. But, he can't. I think it's like, if you were to look it up, I think it's like 51% or something. It's like, it's nowhere close to where it needs to be. So for him, it's just shooting the basketball.
I've been looking for the best deal on Celtics tickets, and with over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events every single day on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports festivals, and more. You can use my code DREAMERSPRO for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code DREAMERSPRO. Make sure you check the link in the description to download the app.